Hi, it's Paul from Old Man With. Today I'm an old man with a landscaping project. I'm showing an angular raised flower bed I built in a garden with a slight slope. I used 100mm by 200mm softwood tannalized sleepers in 2400mm length. The garden slopes around a foot, that's 300mm, from end to end, and around 6 inches, that's 150mm, from one side to the other. This meant I couldn't just lay the sleepers flat if I wanted the top of the bed to look level. First stage was to prep the ground, so I marked out the area with steel pins and string lines. You can use wooden stakes. I just had some steel bar laying around. I completely failed to photograph this, so there's a link to somebody else's marking out video in the description below. I used a laser level that I've used for years, but if I hadn't, then I'd have used a water level. So once I had my outline and an understanding of the slopes of the ground, I levelled the ground across the bottom line and also up the left side for 2400mm, as I've marked here on the photo. That gave me the first two sleepers at the lower level to build from. You can see the lowest one level across the garden, and then here you can see the lowest one up the garden. It seems to disappear because it's level where the path slopes upwards. From there on, because the rest of the structure is short sections and the garden uneven, I levelled a section at a time. I used a traditional spirit level for this. I've got a 2 metre one, but you can use a shorter one with a long straight piece of timber. So for each new sleeper section, I'd level along from the previous one and dig out where necessary. It's probably a good time now to mention that I didn't put any waterproof membrane between the sleepers and the ground. There'll be plenty of people that will criticise this, but it's my risk. It's my garden. If it lasts me 10 years, then I'll be happy with that, and to be honest, I'll be too old to care. What I did do was get some timber treatment. I used a Toolstation one, links in the description, and I applied it liberally in 3 coats on all the cut surfaces. Once the whole structure has a base layer, it's relatively easy to build up from there. I screwed each layer to the layer beneath at the joints and equally spaced along the length where it needed it. I used hexagon headed deck screws from Screwfix at 150 and 200mm length, and I pilot drilled all of them. You can see the top layer, I plugged the screw holes. I got a DeWalt plug cutter and drill set, again from Screwfix, and used an offcut sleeper to cut the plugs from. In fairness, I did this with a bench drill, but I have seen guys online doing it with just an ordinary battery hand drill. In terms of the most difficult task, that was definitely cutting the sleepers, particularly the angled ends. I'd got a couple of years old Makita circular saw with a 80mm cut depth, so I used that. I built a very basic box jig so that I could run the saw against it to get a straight cut from both sides of the sleeper. You can see the jig and the saw in the photo. It gave an okay result, but I wasn't happy with it. I'd got another raised bed to do after this one with a lot of compound angles on that, so on that basis, about halfway through the project, I got myself a Metabo sliding saw from FFX that had a bigger cut depth. That flew through the job. You can see the photo video of the other bed by clicking the link in the description. I set all the sawing angles using a Bora Miterix mitre angle finder. The Miterix is clever, but for me it's a little bit too flimsy, even on a garden project, and it has a bit too much slack. I got it from Screwfix when I did the kitchen install that's shown in another video. Once it was all finished, I lined the inside with 400mm damp course, Screwfix again, really just to try and prevent too much water loss from the soil in the bed. So there it is. If you have any questions on it, please leave a comment below, and feel free to like, subscribe, etc., and look at some of the other videos. Cheers.